this is lesson 2 of week 1. In this lesson, we are going to look at the head element. In the previous lesson, we created a template, and from that template, we created an index page. We are going to focus on the element that comes between the start and the end head tag. Information written within the head tag are not displayed on the web page, and we are going to look at the different elements that are used within the head tags. We are going to discuss 3 of these tags in detail, and the other 3 we will discuss when we get to CSS and JavaScript. The first tag we're going to look at is the base tag. Now, we have something called void elements. Void elements are only written with a start tag. They do not have end tags. They take something called attributes. Now, attributes can be specified in the start tag of any element. These attributes are modifiers of an element. When you add an attribute to an element, you are giving additional information to the element or about the element. Attributes are written in name value pair. So you're going to write the attribute name equal to the attribute value, like this. So what is the base element? We use the base element when we want to provide the base URL of a page, especially when we list relative paths to a page. An example of this is we want to provide a hyperlink to a page, but we do not want to list all of the domain of that page. We want to write the base URL here, and it uses the href attribute. Now, the href attribute is used to provide link to a source. We are going to write the domain that we want this base to be. So for instance, let's say I want to make this direct to facebook.com, and this is the base URL. It also takes an attribute called the target attribute. And what the target attribute does is that it provides where you want the page to be opened. The default is called self, and when you specify self, it means that you want it to be open in the same window. If you don't specify the target attribute, it is going to default to self. If you want it to open in a new browser window, you put the value as blank. There are other values that the target attribute takes, and if you refer to your lecture notes, you will see the list of values for the target attribute and what each value means. So for now, we are going to use blank, which means that we want this to open in a new window. Now, when you have this, let's assume that you want to specify a link on the page, and you want this link to be to the about page of facebook.com. Now, we are going to specify a relative URL, and when we say relative, we mean specifying just the path without the domain. So we'll say href is equal to, now we use /about. Now, why do we use /about? Because we have a base specified. If we do not have this base tag here, we are going to put in the whole domain with the path here, like this. So if we are going to have a lot of links to different parts of the same page, it's better to specify the domain, the base tag, and then you can now specify the relative URL or the path in other links. And so let's say about. So I will save this. If we go back to our desktop and we look at the folder, we have the index.html here. I want to open this, and I'm going to open with Google Chrome. We have the web page and we have the about link, and when I click on this, it goes straight to, opens in a new tab and goes straight to Facebook about page. If I go back to my code and I remove this code of the base and I specify about, I refresh this page, it is no longer going to be found because there is no domain for the relative URL that I specified. So this base tag is useful for when you want to have a lot of relative URL in the page. You specify the base in the head section of the page. Now take note that you want to specify just one base there. It is going to ignore other bases after the first one. This brings us to comments in HTML. Now take note that I had to delete this to illustrate what happens. But if you don't want to delete a code, maybe you want to use the code later on, and you don't want the browser to act on that code, we have something called comment in HTML. And to write a comment, you start with a less than sign, an exclamation mark, and 2 dashes like this, and then you end with 2 and a greater than sign. Now this code remains on your page, but is exempted from execution. And when I save this, I refresh my page, I still have the same problem because I have removed the base tag. Let's look at the next element that comes between the head tag. We have another element called the script. We start script and we end script. And what the script tag holds is a link to external JavaScript file, or if you have a JavaScript code and you want to write it on the page, it goes between the script tag. But we're going to look at this in week 16. We have something else called the link tag, which is a void element that doesn't have a closing tag. And take note that you can write void elements with just the start tag, or you can self-close putting a / after the start tag like this. This link element is used to provide a link to other files, like an external style sheet. We are not going to look at this today, we are going to look at this in week 2, but I just want to illustrate that we have a link element. It is specified in the head element of the page, and it links to an external file or an external style sheet. It takes attributes, and we are going to look at the attributes that it takes in next week's lessons. We also have the style tag, which we are going to look at next week, and the style tag also is used to write styles that will be applied to the page. So if you want to write your styles to be applied on this page, you put the style between the start and the end style tag. We'll look in detail at this next week. So let's look at the meta tag. This is also a void tag. You can self-close or you can leave it with the start tag. It adds metadata to the web page, and this metadata specifies things like the character set, the author of the document, the keywords for search engines, the page description, and also the viewport settings for responsiveness. We are going to look at the different uses or the different attributes and values for the meta tag. The first one we want to look at is the character set, and we have an attribute called the char set. The char set takes values, and because we want to use this standard English that covers the majority of the letters and alphabet in different languages, we use UTF-8. So this is the only attribute and value you want to specify in the first meta. We can use another meta, and this time we want to specify the keywords used by search engines. We are going to use the name attribute, and it will take value, and the value is going to be your keyword. So the name now is keyword because we want to specify keywords, and now the value now is going to be written using the content attribute, and then you specify the values here. So let's say this is a page that gives us information about HTML5, it gives us about CSS3, it gives us about JavaScript, it gives us about, let's say, jQuery, AngularJS. So you specify an exhaustive list of keywords that you want written for search engine optimization. Now we can also specify the name or the description of the page also. So the name here is going to be description, and then the content, which holds the value, is going to be, let's say, dynamic web. We want to specify the author of the document, so meta name is equal to author, and then the content is equal to, so I'll write my name. So these are 4 different meta tags that take different attributes to specify or do different things. The char set specifies the character set of the document. The keyword specifies keyword for search engine. Description gives the description of the page, the author, the name of the author. And we also have this for the viewport, which is going to help with page responsiveness for mobile display. The name is viewport actually. So meta name is equal to viewport, and the content now is this. So you want to put in the width. We're going to look at this in detail when we get to advanced HTML, and we are looking at mobile design. The width is equal to device, and we want the width to be the width of the device, and we want the initial scale is going to be 1.0. So most of these things, apart from the name of the author, the description of the page, and the content, there are things that can actually go in the template, and then you can always change the content values when it is time for you to build your web page. So we have these meta elements giving all of this description. All of the meta tags have no close tag because they avoid elements. All the meta tag does is provide or adds metadata to the page. There is one last tag that goes in the head section, and it's called the title tag. The title tag has a close tag, and we use this to specify the title that is displayed on the browser window. Let's say the title here is HTML5. I will save this. Now if we go back to our web page here, you will see that this browser window now has the title HTML5. If I take that title out, or I change the title to front end and I refresh the page, we have the title here changed to front end. So this is how you provide additional information to a page, and these are the elements that we are going to use on the head tag. The other tags that goes in the head we are going to discuss when we start style sheets and JavaScript. This is where this lecture ends. We are going to look at the body parts in the next lesson.